Jenna-chan! Hey, I've heard about you. I've heard you in the district, you know, doing some things, some possibly illegal things that I gotta check your content, you know, for mercenary style weaponry, you know? We're all just friends here, and can't really call this Camarocho, but we're all just friends here, Jenna. So let's take a seat. Let's have a look at some of your things. I'm just in your friendly neighborhood Majima, who is here to check some of your thoughts. Welcome. Hello everybody, my name is Ian Kirkpatrick. I'm an author, idiot, as you could tell, and loin streamer, and today I wanted to do a video response, discussion, whatever, with one of Jenna's newer videos called 10 Things Writers Do That Make Me Ick. And I don't know how much I'm really going to disagree with her overall. Which is why I said I would like to have more of a conversation. I don't want to be combative. There's one thing in the video that I know I wanted to respond to because, ironically, she released this video like 2 days after I was having the same conversation with somebody else who was also trash-talking the same sorts of people. And so I more or less just want to have a conversation about writers and processes, and then we can see where we line up and where we don't line up, because I can assure you that Jenna and I don't disagree on everything, even if I did enjoy Eve the Awakening, and she doesn't enjoy it anymore. Hashtag free Percy! But before we get started, number one, if you enjoy what I do on this channel, please remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Fund the hats, fund the art, fund the Majima Everywhere Takeover. Number two, if you would like to be featured on the channel, check out the links down in the description below. There are 2 ways to be featured. Number one is Lamwai, which is the monthly writing contest here on the channel where I give you guys a prompt, you write a short story or segment, and then first Monday video of the month, I read them here on the channel to celebrate your guys' ingenuity, creativity, risk-taking, and just amazingness. Number two is if you're an indie author, and you've got a book out or a book coming out, submit the first chapter and the cover down below, and it will be read at random on this channel at some point, and hopefully help you find more readers and help readers find more variation, because there's so much out there that sometimes it just takes a little time to find. And then number three, if you would like to check out any of my books, to feel free to roast me after whatever this conversation is about to be, then they are available at any of your favorite places to get books. I do hope that you enjoy some of them, at least, but they are fairly different. With that said, let's jump into the video and the response discussion, and I would love to hear your thoughts on the 10 things down below, where we might have something different or in common. We'll see.
Hello everybody. Today I'm talking about authors who do gross things in public. These are the 10 things writers do that give me the ick. I realize that the ick typically refers to attraction or interest, so let's just say that if I'm interested in reading an author's content and then they do this shit, my interest declines. Now this stuff...
I will say, if this video is all about judging people for cringe, you have come to the right place, because I am a cringe merchant, if you can't tell. This channel is 51% Yakuza, 25% writing and book relations, and 24% cringe. I am, in fact, a 1/4 cringe merchant, so, you know, I wear it, okay? I am about to give Jenna so much of the ick, I'm sure, maybe. Look, the beginning was... I embrace what I am, okay? If you can't tell.
Isn't necessarily indicative of their writing. It's more so...
Oh, but also, gonna say, because she's talking about things that make her not be interested in a book as much anymore, and I get that. You can have your own opinions about whatever author doing whatever thing. I just wanted to talk about this one thing whenever it comes up in here, because I talked to I see it come around all the time, and it makes people feel bad, and so that's really why I want to talk about it.
So how they talk about their writing,
maybe
how they treat the business, and how they behave within the community. There are some badly behaved authors out there, and they don't think we noticed, but we did. Some of the items
if she mentions book reviews, if she mentions authors behaving badly responding to book reviews, hopefully I remember what I wanted to say when that comes up, because I have some thoughts on that as well.
Aren't too terrible.
That I
they
don't
can be kind of cringy, but that's about it. But some of this shit gives me a visceral reaction.
I'm
I
interested.
feel
Is
the
it-
ick
is
in
it
my
incest?
bones, and I want to bathe
Is it
in
impreg?
holy water because you have disturbed me to my core. I know this
Is it
video is
bathing in
probably
cum?
going to upset
Is it a
some
potato
writers.
shit
Point
they're
number
bathing
10
in
will
werewolf cum?
probably piss a lot of romance writers off, and I'm
Uh-oh.
sorry.
Uh-oh.
Don't
Is it
disown
the
me
potato?
from the team. I'm one of you. Remember, folks, this is just my personal opinion. One person's ick is another person's treasure, right? Maybe? Are any of my icks on your ick list? Comment below.
Well, I'm ready for this. Let's go, Jenna. Let's go. Let's do it.
Now I am breaking down the 10 things writers do that give me the ick.
Let's
if you
go,
do
Jenna.
any of the things on this list, I'm sorry for the call out, but someone
How
had
much
to
you gonna
say,
call me
might
out?
as well be this bitch.
Let's see.
Number 1, I wrote my high school bully into my book just so I could kill them off. That'll show them, except they're never gonna read the book. They're out
Okay.
living their life, blissfully unaware of your existence, while you're still stewing over the hell they put you through. So really, who's the one winning here?
I won't say that it's cringe because I really don't personally care if somebody has that as their inspiration for their thing. What I have been noticing personally when I read books is books and characters written out of hatred or malice are just not that entertaining. I don't really get a whole lot out of your hate diary. I want to read about things that the author is passionate about, that the author cares about, and hated characters very rarely actually get development because the author obviously hates that character. So, you know, you do what you got to do for that emotional development. I don't judge people for doing their emotional stuff in their books. So many authors actually do process, I should say, so many writers actually do process trauma and negative emotions through writing, which is a whatever. But at the end of the day, when I'm picking up a book, I'm waiting to be entertained, and I'm just noticing whether it's your bully or somebody that you're really angry at, or it's a politician, or it's a whatever, when it's written in hatred and malice, it is just not entertaining. It is self-expression for sure, and it is therapeutic, but it's not entertaining. And I think the people that get the most out of it are those that share that same experience and can put their own emotions on top of that.
A lot of writers claim to write people they hate into their books as a villain or so they can kill them off. And I don't think this is clever revenge. I just think it's kind of embarrassing. The best revenge is a happy life.
Also, I think though, I will admit that when I'm looking at the like, here's some writerly stuff that you can sell, and there's like, I think somebody gave me a little placard at some point that said, be nice to me or I'll put you in my next book. I do think that's kind of cringe, but I get that it's what people want to do, and girl, if that is you, you do you, but I am not that guy. I don't think that randomly killing people is edgy, and that has kind of taken a lot of the writing group market.
Not giving this person any more control over your feelings, but you're giving them so much control.
Oh, remind me though of Tom Cardy's got a song called like Mind Fight, and it's all about getting into your head so that you could beat the crap out of all those people that made fun of you. Great song. Check it out.
You need to fictionally murder them in order to feel vindicated. On top of that, not only have you wasted time fuming over this person, you've also immortalized
True
them.
facts.
You've made them a
You know how many
permanent
freaking
fixture.
You know how many freaking politicians are now immortalized because of obsessively writing hatred? Luck could have been a very interesting story if the author hadn't been stuck on hating on a certain politician. Chris Koppel, deal with your issues so you can write good fiction. I'm rooting for you, buddy.
Something you poured your heart and soul into.
That too.
You allowed them
Again,
to permeate.
why are you going to spend so much time writing things that you hate, writing people that you hate, write things that you enjoy, have fun with it, be cringe like me.
That, and they're gonna be there forever. Real talk, if I found out someone hated me so much that they wrote me into their book, even if I was just there to die, I'd be flattered.
Who could hate you, Jenna? But it's also a weird thing because people like Jonathan Mayberry a couple of years ago when he came to my writing conference, he was auctioning off a character in his book that would eventually die off, but you could pay to have either your friend inserted or you inserted as that character or whatever. And so like you're talking about inserting somebody that you hate just to die off. Famous people sell those character slots because people want to be immortalized. So truth.
You care about me that much that you went to such an extreme length to showcase those feelings? Clearly you've been thinking about me a lot more than I've been thinking about you.
It's true.
Number 2, naming your
obsessed,
children
bro.
after characters you want to fuck. This is something that's common
That
among
is a
readers
choice.
and
It
writers,
is
as well as
definitely a
fans of all
choice.
kinds. Remember when Sons of Anarchy was popular and everyone started naming their sons Jackson? Women would publicly say, I named him Jackson because I want to fuck Jackson. Do I need to explain why this is weird? I totally get reading about a character.
It is totally weird to be like, I want to fuck that guy, so I'm going to name my child that. However, there is also, is that just a simplification of all of these situations? People are thirsty, don't get me wrong. People be dang freaking thirsty, but is that an oversimplification? Because people also want to name their children after their husbands, and it's not about this is the man that I want to fuck or that I am fucking. It's about doing an honor/service to that person. Now, if you're naming your child something specifically because you want to fuck somebody, then possibly there's some therapy that needs to be had. I'm just saying.
And feeling inspired by them or connected to them, or even just thinking they have a pretty name. But naming your child after a character you rub one out.
Jenna does, she did say that she is a romance author, so she goes into these areas, spaces more than I do since I'm not like that. But, so she probably has seen some things that I haven't seen.
Out to seems like a conflict of interest. The name you associate with fucking is now the name of your baby.
This really just makes me also think of reading Guns and Smoke, where Bonnie climbed into bed with 10-year-old Harry and said that she was holding Harry like Jessie held her, and he was upset. And it's not a really good thing to like have a reference of saying, I'm holding this child like my lover holds me, because there are some very awkward implications in that. I'm just saying.
I don't see the appeal in this. I feel like it would create a lot of confusion and grossness, as well as a ton of therapy for your poor child.
Yeah,
Number
probably.
3,
Only if your child
my character
knows.
has a mind of their own.
Okay, this is the thing. This is the thing that I wanted to respond to, because I don't want to say I got into it because I just responded to this one chick's tweet. And then the chick tried to say just a prank, bro. Look, there are certain things at some point it's not just a prank. Light my house on fire, not just a prank, bro. Sleep with my husband, not just a prank, bro. Get a bunch of backlash because after a bunch of other people have agreed with you, but there's a couple other people that don't agree with you, not a prank, bro, because you're not having the same defense when you're talking to the people that agree with you. It's only the people that disagree with you that you're like, well, no, what? Okay, so let's see what she got, but I'm gonna confront this. We're gonna confront this head on, Mad Dog style.
Justine, but she just wouldn't behave until I finally named her Jules. I had planned for the love interest to be the prince, but my heroine clearly had the hots for the brooding
This
Rose.
is just telling me that Jenna has a different
I tried to follow my outline,
process.
but my characters refused.
gosh.
They had another story in mind entirely.
It happens,
Everyone knows
Jenna.
the characters aren't real. We all know that they do not have a mind of their own.
They do have a
don't
mind of their own,
at
Jenna.
all. They're fiction. So
Jenna.
these statements seem
Jenna.
try-hard, like you're embellishing your artistry or deferring blame on an imaginary friend.
Jenna.
But Jenna, don't all writers believe that their characters are real and separate
Jenna.
from them? No. I see my characters
Jenna, that is a complete mischaracterization of this kind of process.
as three-dimensional and realistic, sure, but I'm very aware
Layla's not three-dimensional and realistic, just she's a girl boss, but well, I'll let that one go.
that they are creations from my mind. Every writer I know feels this way. I don't know any writer who sees their characters as real, because they're not.
Okay, so Jenna, not everybody works on a stringent outline process, and that's fine. One of the things that I really like about the Discord that I run is that we've got so many different types of people, and I don't want anybody who does outline or does do plotting, because there are plenty of people on the server that do outlining and plotting, to feel like that's not a legitimate way to write. Because it is. If that's what gets your story going, and if that's how your mind works, that's how your mind works. But it seems like people like Jenna, not all outliners, because the ones in the server understand when some of us other people are talking about the shades, the spectrum of intuition. But some of us do work off of intuition. And all that this says to me is that Jenna doesn't really have empathy or understanding of people who think or work differently than her, because I can say my characters have a mind of their own. I don't choose who they are. I just have to listen to the voice that comes to me, and sometimes it's a fully formed character. I always defer to Jan because I remember exactly how he was born. And then he sat in my head for like 2 or 3 years before I actually wrote his story. But I was watching Strange Angel back in 2018, 2019, I can't remember which, and that's a show about Jack Parsons, the father of modern rocket fuel, and he's eccentric. He didn't really get along with the people around him because he was so kind of weird, so passionate about this thing that everybody thought was crazy. And in watching that character, I got the impulse, the character just in my head of this voice, this very specific voice and he came with a name. And I knew that he was either going to be Russian or Ukrainian because I just knew. He came to me fully formed. He was already talking like this. I could hear him exactly telling me, this is what I love. I eat chemicals. I do explosions for no apparent reason. And I knew that he did explosions. And that's kind of where he sat for 2 or 3 years until, well, maybe, I think it was closer to 2. Until I was talking to somebody about him and saying, I have this character. His name is Jan. This is where he's probably from, but I don't know what to do with him. And then somebody said YouTube, and then all of a sudden, everything was there. And he was always talking like this, and I just went along for the ride. And you don't have to understand that it is an ethereal thing, and you're saying that it's try-hard. It's fine if you think that it's try-hard. I'm not going to trash talk outlining because I think outlining is a legitimate way to write if that's how your brain works. But there's a spectrum of people that go intuitively versus curating versus inserting characters exactly how they want them to be and marketing them a certain way. And I think it's a disservice. If you don't understand, that's fine, because personally, I don't really like talking about my creative process with my characters because of stuff like this, because it's very difficult to express having that impulse and just knowing when something feels right as opposed to trying to force something. I have Judah Merchant was a character who was supposed to, somebody was trying to force that character of mine to be this passive style, or no, to be the super aggressive, domineering style character. And anytime that I try to force a character to be something, they eventually develop into the opposite of something. So I kind of just have to let it go. I can't work on a project until I have a really good idea of that character impulse, because that character voice, I am basically a transcriber of those characters. And you don't have to work like that. Totally fine. But that's not how everybody works. And you don't have to like that people talk like that. Again, I have a very difficult time actually talking about what my writing process is or my process with the characters, because I do feel like there is an ethereal thing. Are they real? No, I understand that they're characters in my head, but I also understand that I don't have full creative control over them. The things that come out when I'm writing, I end up surprising myself when I read over them. I'm like, how did I come up with that? Why are these feds talking about how pee is stored in the balls? I don't know. I just sort of channel the characters and go with it, and they have to tell me who they are and what they're doing, and I discover who they are as they're doing things, and also through revision. And again, you don't have to get it. But it seems like there is just such a bias from people that plot specifically and outline specifically, and I'm not saying all outliners. I love my outliner friends. But to assume that it's everybody trying so hard when it's really just impulse writing, it's intuition writing, and it's legitimate for the people that it works for. And if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. But it's not always everybody trying so hard to be this thing. Sometimes it's just how the creative process works. There are so many creative processes. I know people that are on the heavily outline forever, do 9 books in outline before even bothering to write, and they'll spend years doing those outlines before they get writing, and they'll learn everything about their characters. And then I know the other side, which is the totally intuitive writer. And then you've got people in the middle who kind of go, oh, I got this idea for this character, I'm going to curate it now, and then go off of that. There is a spectrum of it, and there's no wrong way to do it. And this is really why I wanted to respond, because stuff like this makes people feel like they're doing it the wrong way, and there's only one way to do it, and they're going to fail as an author if they don't outline. And you don't have to outline if that's not what works for you. And you don't have to intuitively write if that's not what works for you. There is no right or wrong way for creating your process and interacting with your creativity and how you interpret this stuff. So don't let stuff like this make you think that you're gonna fail as an author or a writer or telling your story because you don't do it a certain way. And I love you, my outliner friends. Just because I don't outline doesn't mean I don't respect the grind.
You were there when you made them. We all know that. It's time to come back down to earth. Number 4.
No.
AI art. Oh yeah, we're going there. I totally understand the...
Thank goodness we can probably agree on something after that rant.
Appeal of AI art. When I first heard of Midjourney, I thought it sounded awesome. Like a lot of writers, I played around with the free version of the platform and made a few AI images of my characters. But I didn't share them publicly because they weren't professional. Layla had 6 fingers Tobias had 3 eyeballs. Plus, I didn't know if there were any copyright issues surrounding the artwork. About 2 weeks after this, I learned what has now become common knowledge. AI art is generated using images created by actual human artists without their consent. In my opinion, this should have been the end of the conversation. As writers, we all know how horrible it feels to have our work plagiarized. Or at the very least, we know that that's something we never want to experience. And yet, despite this, I see writers not only paying for AI art, but using it to make promotional images for their books.
Not just that, covers. I was watching a live stream by comic dude JDA. And he had some people on his stream, and they were pitching their comics, which, all good on you. Pitch your Indiegogo comics, all great on that. But then, I happened to be watching this stream where there was this guy who was an author who was bragging about how he had replaced all of his book covers with AI generations. And number one, those are still going through the court system for the legality. They're not copyrightable, by the way, which means you can go and take it and do whatever you want with it, which it needs to be destroyed for commercial purposes for not owning it. And if you look at the terms and conditions on any of these AI places, especially like Midjourney, it says that you don't own the copyright on those, and if people go to them for money, they're coming to you for. But like Jenna is saying, if I get this ick because I'm listening to this guy justify using AI generators for his book cover, saying, well, when you pay for a book cover, people just piecemeal together a cover from stock images anyway. When you're using AI generators, you're not stealing art from those that use stock images. You're stealing art from artists that do that physical labor. So it's not even an equivalency. You're just justifying more theft. And I saw that Shadiversity was justifying theft, which was very disappointing. Obviously, you can disagree and agree with people on very different things. I just don't understand how artists can justify stealing from other artists, especially to monetize. You're going to be on a stream selling me your comic books while then justifying the theft of other people's art. It's insane. And I cannot believe that we're still having this argument. And then you look at the way that the AI bros, for lack of better terms, are treating the artists, calling them draw pigs and draw slaves and draw cells and flesh artists, and insulting them and telling them to kill themselves and all of this other stuff because they want to steal from artists. It's insane, the culture that is around this and the theft of art. How you can be an artist and continually advocate for theft of art.
Let me get this straight. Not only are you knowingly paying for stolen artwork, but you're using stolen artwork to try to get people to buy your books. Do you see the hypocrisy here? I think artists of all kinds have to support one another, and profiting off of stolen work ain't the way to do it. Number 5, purple prose in conversation. Writers typically have a wider vocabulary than the average person, but aside from that, the way that you write usually isn't identical to the way that you speak. But every once in a while, I run into an author who's got to use flowery language in basic conversation. I've noticed this is particularly common among writers who fancy themselves poetic, but they're usually about as poetic as an elementary school haiku.
Okay, so I specifically will bring up his name was Augustin because I remember it being very jarring that it's in first person and it's from the perspective of an 18 to 20-year-old for the majority of the thing. She's a metalhead, and then she talks like this is some style of old historical fiction, and she's using language that somebody her age would not use for the entirety of the book. And I get stylization, and sometimes it's just a stylization, and honey, you do you. But you're going to break my characterization if your dialogue choices and your diction don't match the character in which you're giving me, right? That's pretty much it.
I've also noticed this among some Harlequin writers. They'll talk about their personal love life like it's a scene from Taken by the Duke. My husband and I have shared many a titillating encounter. He kisses me passionately and ravenously, and I quite enjoy it. My heart is aflutter, my loins burning with lust. Literally no one asked. Everyone's different, and maybe you won't.
Let's be honest, some people do ask. We don't want to know, but some people do ask. There was so much burning desire in Guns and Smoke,
spoken that way.
There was.
Good for you. I just find it weird and uncomfortable, and not at all titillating. Sorry.
I don't know. See, I'm not gonna go with the titillating aspect. I don't really read the titillating stuff. She did say she's a romance author, so it's whatever it is that you read. What bothers me is if you break characterization, because when I pick up a book, I'm expecting storytelling, and I go in for character more than anything. The character matters more than the plot. The character matters more. The character creates the voice, and the author creates the character voice by the way that they think, and then also the way that they give into that character's voice. I know we're talking a bit ethereally here, Jenna, but if you forfeit the narrative style more or less to that character, it'll still have some of your speech patterns, because you can't get rid of the weird and unique way that you talk. However, if you tell me that this character is like a 20-year-old who hasn't gone to college yet and loves Evanescence and stuff like that, and then you have her talking like she's from the 1600s, it's very strange. You can actually, diction is such an important aspect of narration and character design that I think often gets overlooked, where you can show character growth and character change by allowing their language to change over time as they grow old, as they go through experiences. Because like in His Name Was Augustine, she starts out as this girl, this 20-year-old girl from the year 2000, late 1990s, and then she goes back in time to the 1024. She could have shown her language changing as she lives back in time, and then when she went forward in time after 25 years, her friends back home could have noticed how weird she was talking because she picked up these weird speech patterns while living in the past for 25 years. There's so much you can do with character and diction that I think often gets overlooked for the stylization, but also stylization is just part of author voice. Sometimes it's barely there because authors don't develop their voices. I love Bret Easton Ellis specifically because of his characterization, even if I don't love every one of his stories. That's getting off topic, but diction matters, people. And if you're going to go with the style, just, I guess, embrace that style, but understand, I think, why you're choosing the words and the languages that you are, and don't just try to be poetic. Otherwise, I think you kind of end up with Lightlark, where it's like the Yoki thing, which could have worked in a different book, but not necessarily for the age bracket that she pushed it up into.
Number 6, the social media diary. I think it's great to be personal via your author platform. It's nice to show your audience who you really are. But there are instances where it deviates from giving a glimpse into your life to full-blown trauma dumping.
There is that.
Or plain old bitching, if I'm being honest. We all need to vent sometimes.
There is that.
Actually,
Actually,
that's what family, friends, or your therapist is for.
That's funny because I did, you'll see that video eventually. I did a video talking about different marketing tactics that have shown up on social media and in general in the publishing industry. And one of those marketing tactics is like pity pleading, where you're like, I see so many people, come on, and then, oh, they're dumping about their 1-star review that they got. And it ends up selling books. And I understand like being hurt by a review or even wanting to like talk about different things of how something was misinterpreted. There's certain things that I don't think look good. And that's not necessarily even just don't look good. It's just you should keep those things to yourself because it doesn't need to be in the public sphere and the public conversation as a professional. I love conversations with authors about the different ways that they approach subject matter and why they made creative decisions that they made. But also like dumping all of your personal stuff online and then especially your personal responses to business related things, very kind of awkward.
And if you don't have those things, journaling is always available. But I've seen a lot of authors go straight to TikTok or Instagram Live to cry about even the most trivial things. Vulnerability is an asset, but constant complaining isn't appealing to anyone.
And I think that people have started marketing for empathy. That's kind of a touchy subject though, but because you're saying to distrust people when they're feeling distressed. And at some points, it almost feels like it's incentivizing having more sensitive responses so that you can feel wronged, so that you can reach out to people and say, I've been wronged, and then get empathy from viewers. And I think it's training people to have sensitive responses.
Your readers are going to see you as negative and ungrateful, and that is a major turnoff. Number 7, inserting yourself into reader spaces. There are authors out there joining private reading communities just so that they can monitor readers' reactions to their books.
Okay, look, I understand wanting to know how people are responding to your books, but let them come to you if they have something to say to you. I love when people want to share how they're feeling about the stuff that I've worked on because I love my baby so much. And I love to see what people are experiencing with my characters. But I would never insert myself into any of these spaces. They can come to me with whatever it is that they want to say, and I will listen. But yet, don't stalk readers.
There are authors who read and respond to their negative reviews, starting debates or picking fights. There are authors who post rants about reader opinions. And this gives me the ick because readers are allowed to have their own space separate from authors. And writers, I get it. We have all gotten reviews that have deeply hurt our feelings. It's perfectly fine to be upset. Have a good cry, vent to your friends. But it's not appropriate to invade a book club just to spy or to confront reviewers who probably had no idea you were reading their reviews in the first place. And when you target a reader publicly, you are putting them in a position to be bullied by your audience.
Oh my gosh. So again, it makes me think of His Name Was Augustine, because there was all of this drama with the first book where I knew some people that were reading the first book because they were romance readers. The author was having difficulty discovering what genre to label it as with the first book in her 6-part series because the other books weren't out yet. So my friend decided to buddy read it with one of her friends, and they just ended up not liking it. And, you know, I've got reviews for that book on this channel if you want to see them, for Arcane Gateway and Mystic Passage, the first 2 books in the series, and then I have a series summary basically, and I'll be doing a discussion with Halo Studios about the book eventually, the books. But when the books first came out, those were some of her first readers that she didn't know, and so they just didn't like her book, and they just wrote back book reviews, critical book reviews, as they do for any book that they read that they don't like. They're avid readers, and the author went on this months-long campaign of like daily insulting the readers, calling them stupid and all sorts of other things. And I gave her until I finished reading the first 2 books to knock it off, which took about 3 months before I finally caught up. And she was still regularly insulting those readers on her social media page and trying to galvanize some of her social media followers to go after, to the point that even one of her social media followers did go onto the Goodreads and started interacting with one of the negative reviews, insulting one of the negative reviewers with stuff like, oh, I can understand why you're so afraid of rapists around every corner, and trying to make this a political thing when it was just a book review. And so there's things to not do. But I think that I have a mild nuance about this in a way that I would love to see more book reviews, not book reviews, but book discussions from people who are willing to be maybe not critical or like hound people, but to see difference of perspectives between the reader and the author, and to actually have a conversation to show that you can be respectful and you can disagree on some things, or you can ask somebody questions about a book that maybe you didn't like to get a better understanding of it, even if you don't end up liking the book still. Because there's such a hostile environment between reviewers and authors that authors are really discouraged from talking about their books, period, when it comes to interpretation. And don't target people for their different perspectives, but I think that there is room to have maybe author talking to one another about a book, because you don't really see authors talking to each other about their books because it's not considered professional or something to honestly discuss books if you're not selling somebody's book for them. But I think there's a place to have actual book discussion that is not just fellatiating somebody's book, if you know what I mean. But it also doesn't have to be critical. Like, I would love more answers about His Name Was Augustine, to know what that author was trying to accomplish and what she thought she accomplished. I obviously couldn't have a conversation with her because of our past, but I would still love to know what her direction was and why she made some of the choices that she made, and have more of those tough questions about construction and craft and character and morality and these things, even if I didn't like the book. But that's not a place for authors to come into the reader space and attack readers. It's a place to build a relationship first, talking to that person, and then something. I don't know how to accomplish this other than just encouraging people to talk and disagree, and know that you don't have to hate each other just because you have a different viewpoint on something. It's fine. The other thing that I've noticed recently with marketing is the authors behaving badly get more attention by responding to reviews, because then everybody is talking about them, and then they start saying that they're canceled, and the people are supporting them because they have now been canceled. So it is now becoming a marketing scheme and a marketing gimmick to get a response by responding to reviews. And again, we're playing on pity and lack of information. So just be, I think, cognizant that that is sort of happening right now.
I once saw an author drag a review that honestly wasn't that bad. It was just average. And their fans ripped that reader apart. That's really inappropriate, unprofessional, and childish.
Yeah.
If negative
Look, if you're gonna be, that's I think one of the reasons why they say, hey, authors, don't be critical, other than, you know, it's a business and selling stuff. But if you're going to be critical of a book review, always, guys, like with the stuff that I do, because I know that I'm super critical of books, I love book discussion, which is why I do book reviews the way that I do them. I want to talk to people about the experience from within the books that I have with the books, that you have with the books. Never go and attack other readers or other authors for the way that they do things. Let's talk about the book, the author separate from the book. Let's talk about the contents of the book, the experiences that we had, how we felt, how things were put together, and leave everyone else out of it. It's not a team sport. It is just an experience that we all shared one way or another. And that's what I love about reading.
Reviews upset you? That's fine. Don't read them. Launching an online campaign against unassuming readers isn't gonna boost your credibility.
Yeah.
Number 8. Gatekeeping. You're not allowed to write this genre because a neckbeard on Reddit said so. There are several genres where gatekeep.
I think it's mildly disingenuous to just say neckbeard, because there are certain people in different areas that say you're not allowed to write something because you are not something. Let's be clear about that. Oh, you're not allowed to write having chronic pain because you haven't outed yourself as having chronic pain. Let's just put that out there. It's not just gatekeeping genres, it's gatekeeping styles of character, types of character personalities, all sorts of things. I agree with Jenna, let's not gatekeep these things. But what else did she talk about?
Genres abound, but the two most obvious ones are fantasy and sci-fi. These genres...
Fantasy and sci-fi, we're just gatekeeping fantasy and sci-fi. We're gatekeeping a lot of things. Let's be honest here.
Have a very dedicated fan base, and a subset of them believes in keeping the genres true to their origin. But literature naturally changes over time. It's been that way since the dawn of the written word. On top of that, subgenres and multi-genre fiction exist. Typically, gatekeepers want all sci-fi to be modeled after old-school space operas, and all fantasy novels to be modeled after old-school.
I think this is just reader expectation, and don't get, Jenna is the marketing expert out of the two of us. Jenna, please help me market. But I think more of what this is just genre expectations. And yeah, there are going to be rabid people in any fan base. That's why I kind of stay out of fan bases. I may be a huge fan of Yakuza, but I'm not going to get into any fan basing because I don't want the toxicity of it. And some of the way that the characters are treated in the fan base kind of hurts me, hurts my soul. But that aside, I've noticed because Bodymore falls into magical realism, and it's much more literary with fantasy elements because of that. It doesn't follow the typical beats that a fantasy novel would, and people will, in some cases, want to put magical realism into fantasy when it's actually a subgenre of literary fiction as well, because it's character-driven as opposed to plot-driven. But then you put a character-driven story into fantasy, where people are into the fantasy genre, where people are expecting bigger plot, big baddies, these big battles and these heroes and all this, and instead you get this plot-driven novel about a girl dealing with grief and depression, and it doesn't meet what the expectations were, which is a big battle or big plot with ghosts, a la Dresden Files, because it's a much more personal story. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been having difficulty with more recently, is how to navigate genre expectations when you know what your story is, but you don't know how to reach the readers. And again, it goes into fantasy with character-driven. It goes into character-driven magical realism instead of urban fantasy that's this big plot where you have to actually pick up where things are written differently, where the pace is different, and because it's character driven, the choices are going to be because of the characters, not because of the plot. And so how do you navigate those spaces? I don't necessarily think it's gatekeeping, as opposed to people just have these stringent expectations of what goes into these genres, and if you deviate from that, they're like, what the frick is this? Because you're not meeting the expectation of the genre. And I have no idea how to deal with that.
Epic fantasy. And while that in itself is extremely limiting for space operas and epic fantasy, it's got nothing to do with the other subgenres. Why are you holding epic fantasy expectations to portal fantasy, contemporary fantasy, or urban fantasy? All these subgenres are different.
Again,
they
it's
can't
expectations.
possibly meet your rigid standards.
It's just reader expectations from a group of fans that already exist, and that's kind of, genre's just marketing. And so then I have no idea how to solve this.
And even if we throw logic out the window, Why do you care so much? If you don't like the way someone tells a story, don't read their story. Instead of forcing everyone to replicate Dune, why don't you write the story you want instead? Just saying. Number 9, competition. Did you know that some authors will leave negative reviews for books they haven't read solely because they believe that author is their competition?
Sometimes I don't want to make assumptions, but I can't help but feel like this is kind of what happened with The Men versus Manhunt. Because they were both the gender apocalypse books that came out around the same time. And some people were making some personal claims, and there was kind of a brigade against The Men. And I read both of the books and didn't like either of them. But I do think it is kind of sketchy when two authors of basically the same or similar genre, one of them just brigades the other one's review section.
Especially common if said competition novel is being released around the same time as their book. What gets me is, no book is competition, ever.
True.
This
True
isn't
facts.
a presidential campaign. Readers can buy multiple books. They can have multiple favorites.
True.
That competitor of yours isn't taking anything away from you. In fact, they could be a comp title.
True.
You'd be better off befriending that author and trying to collaborate with them as opposed to undermining their success. And
yeah, especially if you pay attention to their reader space, people have unlimited desire to purchase books if they purchase books. I know people that just pick up hundreds of books and then they just look at all of the books and they read 30 to 50 books a month. It is insane. Other people in your genre are not your competition. If anything, you want to use that person to bring those readers to you who also are writing a similar thing. Because if they like Manhunt, they may like The Men. Instead of attacking people, use what you have in common with other authors to build and bring stuff to what you're doing. Jenna is absolutely right. Nobody is your competition in the creative space except for maybe the corporations trying to steal your ideas. But
just when you think that's as
issue.
Fucked up as it gets, did you know that some writers will buy negative reviews for other authors'
Why
books?
are we doing
That's
this?
right. People can truly be that desperate. I genuinely believe that if writers put that energy into writing an amazing book and putting together a powerful marketing campaign instead of targeting other writers, we could all be bestsellers. And
and also, like, this is one of the many reasons why I say don't pay attention to star ratings, is look at the reviews, look at what exactly people are saying about the reviews, how it relates directly to the content of the book that you're looking at, and make your determination from that if you're using those metrics to purchase a book or not. I usually don't. I like to use reviews as sort of supplemental material to make up for my lack of getting to converse with other people about a book, to be like, hey, did they experience the same thing I experienced? Do other people see the same things I saw? But I never use star ratings to tell me whether a book is worth reading or not, whether it's well written or not. And in fact, my understanding of star systems actually goes more like this, is anything that is 4 stars and above, usually sold to a niche audience, because very rarely are people outside of that niche audience going to read it. Like the story about the fingerling potato shifter and the werewolf and its impreg. Very few people outside of that target audience are going to read it, so it's probably going to have a fairly high rating from just satiating the people that read that. Then anything between 2 stars and 4 stars means that it got widespread attention. It probably went to people that are outside of its genre, and so they probably didn't enjoy it. There may also be some controversy. There's probably stuff to discuss about it. And then anything under 2 stars, usually either there are very few reviews, if at all, and or there's probably author controversy, because stuff just gets bombed. So even with below 1 star or below 2 star, it's very hard to tell the quality of the book because people do use reviews as personal attacks and campaigns.
10, commissioning pornographic artwork of your characters.
Hey.
I know a lot of women are going to be pissed about this point, but just give me a minute, goddammit. If a reader makes fan art of my characters, I don't give a fuck what they draw. They can draw Tobias buck naked, holding his big old dick, shooting a massive load in the air. They could draw Layla's butthole for all I care. I will be flattered and delighted because someone loved my book enough to draw that butthole. Someone took time out of their day to draw that hefty dick, and I will cherish them until they die. I also adore sexy artwork commissioned by authors. I've seen art where the characters are bathing together, or they're lying in bed naked together, and it's just lovely and romantic and beautiful. But when an author goes out of their way to commission explicit graphic sex, I'm talking about a close-up of your OC ramming ramming their dick in an asshole, or their mouth flopping around a snatch. I just pause and ask myself,
how often do you...
Why?
I have to ask how often you really see this, because like I see art plenty of time. I follow a bunch of artists on Twitter just because I love looking at art. And I have not really seen this issue. I also know not safe for work comic book artists in general, so I see some of that stuff show up in general because they're writing not safe for work content. But how often is she really... I have to wonder, how common is this in the romance space that you see people with specifically like pornographic POV pictures? I want to know. I mean, I am not a fan of excessively that either, but also it just happens. And I don't know, I think that I am more free-willing of this in general because I know not safe for work artists, and I don't have a problem with them doing their not safe for work thing with their OCs, with my OCs, with our OCs together. It just sort of happens sometimes. Especially if that, I don't know, does she draw the line where if you're drawing your own OC in a not safe for work position? Because I also don't think that it's necessarily always personally sexual. I mean, it can be. But just like romance in a book or that happens in a book is not always the author's kink. Sometimes it is the kink. I don't need to know exactly what has wetted the pages of somebody's book. But I think there's nuance here. I just want to know how often Jenna is running in to up-close POV shots of porn for book characters.
Is that these pictures are for your spank bank, and if that's the case, do you. Literally, I guess. But they usually make these pictures public in some way, so now I am privy to your lecherous thoughts. I don't need to know about your masturbatory habits. I have zero desire to be in the loop. And honestly, they're your characters.
See, I need to know.
Can't you just imagine them while you flick the bean?
See, I need to know because I know not safe for work artists. My best friend is a not safe for work artist, and sometimes he draws our characters in not safe for work positions because they are romantically involved and he's a not safe for work artist, and it's just what he does. It has nothing to do with personal sexuality or flicking the bean. So is this an assumption or is this something that's actually happening? And where is the line, I wonder, for Jenna when it comes to like drawing your own characters, like kissing other characters or being in a situation with other characters, especially if you're just a not safe for work artist? I wonder.
Commissioning pornography feels a little excessive to me, but to each their own. So that's all I got for you today. Friendly reminder, shut up and write the book is being...
Well, how do you feel about commissioning not safe for work art? I love commissioning art, period. I wish I had more money to hire artists all the freaking time. You would never see the end of the art of me commissioning stuff. And even I would love to commission some animation to do some music videos for some of my books. Oh my gosh, please help me get there. Please help me make something go viral enough that I can afford to just constantly hire people to make my art even more visible. I've got so much story to tell. Anyway, those were the 10 things that make Jenna go ick. We agreed on some, we disagreed on others, but don't feel bad about you doing you, so long as you're not hurting somebody else. There is no one way to be a creative, and I want to encourage all our authors and creatives to explore what it is that makes their creative process work and their mind work, and to get their storytelling out there. And I would love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. With that said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a great weekend. Don't die, or I will have to come and find you. And you don't want that, do you? I didn't think so.
Was that Wayland Cross in the trunk? Do you know, or is that something that's still being figured out?
The person in the trunk was not Wayland Cross. Is he in trouble? We don't know who did it, but as the owner of the car, the longer he's missing, the worse it looks for him.
Cross isn't a killer.
For the last couple of years, the average number of murders in Baltimore has been over 300, and it's been going up. Mind you, that's only whatever the badges count as official murder, and believe me, there are people that don't count when they die.
Wayland? If you're down here, tell me. I'm not talking to the badges, I've been looking for you. They found a body in your trunk. Why? Did you do that?
To the left, plain black letters read along the wall,
You walked in the corridor. Once that ends, you chose the dark is on the right. My vision goes blurry, flickers black and black and black for longer intervals until I can't see anything at all. I'm not screaming anymore, but my voice echoes back to me. Where the hell am I? You're dead, Josephine. Even smart people do stupid shit sometimes, right?